And welcome back to Stories from the River. This is your host, Charlie Malouf, and we are in the middle of our Global Leadership Summit recap series. And I'm joined today in studio with Meagan Guzman, our newly hired Associate Director of People Operations. Meagan, welcome to the pod.
Thanks so much for having me, Charlie.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
And so you're 2 months into your career at the River. How's it going so far?
So far, so good. I mean, I'm already getting to go to great leadership summits and learning all sorts of good stuff about the team and the company. So I love it.
Awesome. And you came cross country from San Diego.
I sure did.
That's quite a move.
It is. Sometimes you got to leap in faith.
That's right. Speaking of which, okay, so today, I'm just going to, since you gave me a great segue there, Meagan. And by the way, is this your first podcast?
Yes, it is.
A first podcast, and here at Stories from the River. So we like to break people in gently here for their first podcast. Now, Meagan attended the Global Leadership Summit with us August 7th and 8th, or 6th and 7th, I think, here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We attended it virtually. It was held in Chicago, Illinois, but we attended with 19 other leaders and memory makers from the River at the Park Expo and Convention Center. What did you think of the environment and kind of how we showed up?
I mean, we came out in full force, but I think the environment was amazing. It's always great to be around other people who want to learn more about how they can be better for themselves and their teams. So I think it's wonderful. Yeah,
I think even though we're watching it virtually, and the next best thing would be like being there in person with everyone there, but you know, it's one thing to kind of watch it at your computer by yourself in your own room, but to watch it with your team is a second thing. But then to watch it in a team with other people from the community kind of just adds elements to it. Because then we connected with a lot of people from other companies in town.
Yeah, definitely. We even connected with someone who's looking for a job at the River. So hopefully we'll get that going soon.
That is correct. We got her application in and ready to assess those open positions. And Meagan, I also just want to say I do remember your first interview because you did fly cross country on the red eye, showed up fantastic. Like you wouldn't know that you had no sleep or slept on a plane on the red eye and showed up, and so enough for us to want to hire you.
Yeah. Everybody said I was a little bit out of my mind for doing that, but it worked out well. It was great. I'm an early riser, so the red eye doesn't bother me.
There you go. I try to take fewer and fewer red eyes the older I get. Okay, so was this your first ever Global Leadership Summit?
It was, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just generally, what was your general takeaway?
I mean, in general, be boring was a big theme of the day, and a lot of different people spoke about that in kind of different ways, in their own ways, and how you just need to be consistent, and being consistent brings great things to you and to those around you. So
yeah. Craig Rochelle, who, and his episode aired on Thursday the 21st, so we'll put a link back to that to start. We started that recap series with Carl and Mark, Carl Hilleslin and Mark Dooley, and he talked about great leadership is boring, but it's all about that great habits and taking joy in that, and that's really, you kind of have to do those sacrifices to be able to kind of shine for the few moments that you get to shine, and how consistency compounds. And then, like to your point, a lot of other people talked about different kind of ways to go about it. And by the way, I'm repping our Global Leadership Summit shirt that was given to me, by Chris Cooper from the Park Church, and we were at the Park Expo for when I interviewed. This was a gift he gave me, so that was kind of nice of him. So I said, well, let me just wear this since we're in studio today. But we're going to talk about a really phenomenal speaker who I really did not know anything about prior to the summit, Thasunda Brown Duckett. Now, T, as she calls herself, T Duckett, or Thasunda Brown Duckett. She started her career in finance with Fannie Mae, did 17 years rising through the ranks at JP Morgan, I think was like the CEO of consumer banking, and now is the CEO of TIAA. And so had you ever heard of Thasunda Brown Duckett before?
I had not. There's all these amazing leaders that are kind of hiding in the background sometimes, and until you get to experience them in something like this, you're never going to know how amazing they really are.
Yeah, and so she was one, and I rewatched. We've got access on demand. I know you rewatched it as well, and I reviewed my notes, and I think I came away rewatching it. Just my initial impression is, I'm even more impressed than I was impressed the first time I saw it. There's some things we're going to talk about today that really kind of resonated and stuck with me, and then I watched it again. I'm like, because when you're going through a summit like that, you're really drinking from a fire hose, and it's hard to kind of catch all the gold as it's coming at you. But the second time, just in a little bit of a calmer state where you're not kind of cramming, all these powerhouse speakers at once, I was like, man, everything she said was gold. Everything was good. And it's really impressive. And I just think her journey, talk a little bit about her and her journey, kind of where she came from and how she's ascended today, because it's quite impressive.
Yeah. I mean, as we were talking earlier, her statement was that she is a first generation integration. Yeah. Thank you. And so she, really came from a place where she didn't see people like her in business or industry. She talked a little bit about how the people in like the mailrooms or the cafeteria were the ones that were her gender and her race. And those were the people that she could connect with. And she was able to, through people providing information and people advocating for her, which were two really powerful things she talked about, allowed herself to move into these spaces where she was able to become what she is today, in charge of, I think they said $1.6 trillion in assets or something wildly beyond my own imagination. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a little bit about her and speaks volumes. She's one thing that really stuck out with me was the very first thing she did when she came on was thank the people behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And, as a leader, it's very easy to forget all of those people. And it's very clear that she is never going to forget any of those people. So I thought that was really interesting.
That's so insightful. That was when David Ashcraft, who interviewed her in this town hall setting for her talk, she paused and said, well, before we get going, I'd like to, since we agreed to do this, your team and all the people behind the scenes who made this happen, she made a point to recognize them. And so you talked about her upbringing. Her parents were Otis and Rosie Brown, mm-hmm. Who came from the segregated South. So she said she is first generation integration, yes. Or first generation full integration. I'd never heard that phrase before, mm-hmm. Per se. And so, I mean, she's a woman, and she's a Black woman who has ascended to the CEO of a huge company and had a marvelous career, but because she's earned it every step of the way, because she is quite impressive.
Yes.
And her upbringing was like, you got to work to be excellent. You got to work twice as hard. And her parents made it okay for her to dream. And then people advocated for her, like you said, along the way. But it's interesting. Her quote, one of her first quotes was, people see your glory, but they don't know your story.
Yes.
And she really unpacked her story. And you talked about recognizing the male person in the mailroom, because I think David asked her something like, well, how do you not forget the other people, mm-hmm. And she said, then I'd be forgetting my dad, because my dad was one of those mailroom workers. And she said, even though they didn't grow up with much, and she said she remembers opening the fridge and maybe seeing just a baking powder, mm-hmm. Baking soda box in the fridge, nothing in the fridge, but somehow they always had food. And if she saw someone, if she came home from school and her mom said, if someone didn't have lunch, did you give them your lunch today? And her mom expected that. So they survived a lot on faith. And so it's just kind of giving back and not being worried about what you don't have, just making sure that you're serving those who have less. It was pretty powerful, her upbringing.
It really was. I also found it really interesting. She was talking about when she was the CEO of Auto at JP Morgan. And one of the things she first did was go down to the mailroom and thank them for doing their work. There was a lot of gratitude in everything that she shared, which I think her parents instilled in her, and her dad telling her, reach for the stars, because if you don't, you end up in the clouds. And you're still going to be pretty high achiever if you don't hit those stars, and we'll be proud of you either way. It was really important.
Yeah, I love that. And she even said, I'm still dreaming big. It gave her permission to dream big, regardless of where she came from. I love that she said, she acknowledged so much in her story of, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And it just gave her this kind of introspection about, like, I have a responsibility to contend. My parents dreamed big for me and for my life. And so I have a responsibility to give back through the way I live my life for those who kind of stewarded me and sacrificed along the way. And so it's just powerful. Her perspective is so powerful. And then I just want to, you could listen. I've got to go back and listen to more of her.
Of course. Yeah.
Because there's not like a wasted sentiment or a thought or a word that she said. There's so much wisdom and power that you can really apply to kind of your own thinking. So let's just go through it. What were some of what's one of your big takeaways that you had from her?
In the moment, partially because of where I was in that moment, she was talking about, emulating the culture and leading the culture and letting people know it's okay to not be okay. And then also speaking how there is not work-life balance. There's only 100% of you, and you can't, lie to yourself and say you're going to give 100% to work and 100% to other things. So you need to do that allocation correctly, and it may change over time. I think she said it was like living as though you're a diversified portfolio. Mm-hmm. It really stuck with me. Just moving out here and being a little bit further away from family. And we had some things go on that week that had happened. My parents were actually in a horrible car accident.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. And just knowing that I had to let my team know, like, hey, there's a part of me that is not going to be able to focus on this right now. And being so new, it was a little bit of a challenge. But I think hearing someone who's in such a successful place saying that's okay was really, it really spoke to me, just because it's where I was at in that moment, and I really needed to hear it. So
that was the whole diversified portfolio piece was probably my biggest takeaway in the moment. It may still be my biggest takeaway. I want to go back in reverse just a second, and because you hit on I want to talk about her approach to excellence and her father telling her you have to work twice as hard, and she said something about, I'm willing to, like, about what she's willing to do. I'm willing to or go to work early, stay late, be seen, talk to the people, have coffee with them early in the morning, say hello to them, whether I'm in the office 5 days a week, 3 days a week. And that's what she's trying to teach her kids and or young people as well. And what'd she say? Don't be mid. Don't
be mid.
Don't be mid with your career. Like, be excellent. And she said, people will take the hill for you or with you when they know that you're willing to take the hill. But she said they'll even do it before you ask them to take the hill. Like, they'll take the hill if you ask them to take the hill, because they know what you're willing to do, but you won't even have to ask them because they'll do it before you're willing to do it. So I think that was just about, like, modeling an excellent work ethic.
Yes, definitely. I think even I wrote down be 2 times better, and I circled it and rounded it out. You have to show people and show your team, especially, you're willing to put in the time and do the work, because that helps them know that you're there for them at the end of the day. And that's kind of all that really matters. The job matters, of course, and the work matters, of course, but being present and being there for them and getting it done the way you need to, and also knowing we're going to be here and work through it if we have to because we made a mistake, is perfect too. So
yeah. Okay. So I want to go back to your topic now on the difference. You've heard a lot of people talk about, like, their opinion on work-life balance. And she just came out right and said, work-life balance is a lie. And she said, think about it like this. And she said, I can't give, I keep doing the math on 110% and doing more. She goes, I come from finance. The bottom line just doesn't reconcile. Okay, that's wise. You only have 100% of yourself to give. And she said, think about it like a diverse portfolio. And she said, any investment manager will tell you that a diverse portfolio, it can outperform the market and handle the ups and downs of market volatility. And she said there are times, like you were talking about, when she was talking about like where she felt like she was living life like with a big L, like as a loss as a parent, loss as a leader, loss as a daughter.
Right.
And then she said, you know what? I learned I have to give myself a lot more grace. And that if I think about my life as as giving an allocation to each audience, like if I'm going to give my kids 30%, she's like, that's actually pretty good. But when she gives them 30%, she's going to give them 100% of 30%. But she said over a long period of time, that's pretty good. But she said, think of all the things that are meaningful to you. And that goes into your portfolio of how you kind of balance your life. But then sometimes some certain things have to be given more time than others. Like with regards to your personal situation, she said sometimes she referenced like a family situation and she had to give more time to that. But she's saying that's how you deal with the volatility. You just kind of calibrate your percentages in your portfolio of your 100%. And then in so doing, you also allow yourself to give yourself a lot of grace to kind of go through it. It was just so much wisdom in her whole approach to work-life balance, saying, look, you only have 100% of yourself. Whatever you're focused on, give 100% of that. But it might not be 100% total. It might be 20% here, 30% here. And in this season, it might need to be 80%. And some of the other ones got to go down a little bit because you've got to do this for a season, not forever, but for a season to get to the end or because that's what's required in that season. So a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of wisdom in taking like, hey, I'm from finance. It's got to balance at the end of the day. It's got to reconcile. And the only way to reconcile it is you can only equal 100%.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to short sell something. She said that too, which I think it makes a lot of sense. As a people person, we tend to say, there's great work-life balance at this organization and all of that. And it really made me think of how we can better, because we have a great culture at Broad River. We really do. If people are going through things, we support them through that in various ways. And just really thinking about how we can better reflect that in how we recruit and do all of those things, just from that's where my brain goes. I'm not the finance person. I don't necessarily understand all of that stuff, but knowing, we can allow people to give those percentages. As long as you're giving 100% of your 50%, you're doing really good.
Yeah.
You're doing really well, and it helps you in all aspects because you can be more present in everything.
You just said the word I was thinking, like being present in what you're doing. So however your calibration is for that season or where you are, be present doing that. And so there's a lot of wisdom in that. I love the diverse portfolio answer to kind of work-life balance, work-life harmony, work-life integration. And she said, just take a diverse portfolio approach and give yourself a lot of grace along the way.
Yes.
The last thing, probably my takeaway, was this whole thing. So her name is Thasunda, tea, and she says she has coffee and tea with people. So she said, no one likes meetings, so we don't do meetings. We do jam sessions. And I like to kind of get a diverse group of people, like 10 at the most. And so coffee and tea's like a double entendre, like tea, the actual tea, but tea with her name. And so what, do you remember the coffee and tea?
I do, yeah. And just she would specifically pick certain groups of people that she would speak to so she could diversify her portfolio. She was going and speaking to different people in different areas of her organization so that she could get a feel for how they were feeling about her. She had some questions that she always asks. I wrote them down because they're pretty wise, but what would you do if you were in my position, if you held my title? Asking, she used the example of her admin assistants, and then she also used the example of like some project managers and things like that. So, all the different levels of individuals. And then the second one was, what are 2 things you would say or do differently if you were in the position that I'm in?
Yeah.
So really asking for feedback, but in a way that allows the team to feel like it's okay to give her that in that moment was really powerful, I think.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd love to remove meetings and just have jam sessions.
Definitely.
We're moving to jam sessions at the river. We got it from Thasunda. Thank you for that. And then it was when I started this podcast. Actually, our production company said, ask people. I used to ask people this question: if you were, if I had retired and you were some version of, and you were now the president and CEO, what is the one thing that you would change or do? And so some people gave a great answer. Some people that kind of stumped, they didn't want to answer. It was always kind of funny. And so it kind of took me back to that, but it was like, the way I heard her say it was, what's one or two things that you would never change, that you would leave in place? And then what's one or two things that you would say to yourself, finally, I'm CEO, I'm going to change this. And then what's one or two things that like you would keep the same? And all she said she was looking for were themes. Maybe not the exact thing, but themes of like what's really important or what's really broken, that comes from, that's how she kind of cut through the clutter and made sure she was getting the feedback all the way down to the ground floor, the grassroots. And so there's a lot of wisdom in that, a lot of wisdom in just her approach, I thought, in breaking down barriers and never forgetting where you came from, but also letting people be a role model in how you live your life and how you are at work, and how you're also a mom and a wife and a daughter and a sister. I thought it was just, and a mentor too. Sure. I wanted to speak for that for a second, because one of when you go to a virtual host site, they do interviews during lunch, and I got to be interviewed on one, and we showed that episode here on this podcast. And then the next day there was Jada Grandy Mock was interviewed, and Jada has written this book, and Corey Edens actually got her to autograph it and sign it, and direct it to me. So thank you, Corey, for this gift. Thank you, Jada, for this. It was a really kind note, but success is in your reach. And Jada is also in the banking world and at an elevated title here in Charlotte. And she said something, and it was like, yeah, T is one of my mentors.
Yes.
And so she called her T. And so I just thought that was really interesting. So Thasunda's also giving it, even though she was named as one of Time's 100 most influential people in America or the world, I can't remember which it was, she's also willing to kind of serve and give back, and even at the local level here in Charlotte. So Jada was also influenced by Thasunda. So I thought that was really, really cool, about kind of like lending a hand back and making sure that you help the next generation of leaders.
It definitely was one of the things she spoke about is, she had someone who gave her the information, and she had someone that advocated for her. So it's important for her to do that for others. I think it's always important to remember that ourselves as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Meagan, thank you for joining on the pod here, coming in this morning for your first ever podcast interview here at Stories from the River. A brand new leader here at the River, Meagan Guzman, imported straight from San Diego, California, with some roots from Pittsburgh. She's a Pittsburgh sports fan.
That I am.
Yeah, and also a former Californian who's now Carolinian. So we're it's awesome to have you in the company, and I know you're going to do a great job for us and have a very bright future and an awesome career here.
Thanks for having me, Charlie. I appreciate it.
So that's a wrap on this episode of the Global Leadership Summit recap series, recapping Thasunda Brown Duckett's talk from the GLS 2025 summit. And so we're going to look more into Thasunda and see if we can find some more talks and whatnot to share, and go back and just listen to that talk on demand. It was fantastic, and share some of these nuggets out. And we're excited to kind of share those out with our audience. She had some amazing takeaways. And so we'll have more episodes in our GLS recap series here from Stories from the River. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday and Thursday. A lot going on here at the River this month here in August. And so we got a lot of events to recap. And thanks for joining us, whether you catch us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.